we had to go indoors today because of the weather. Split half the field, offense, defense. Our guys have been back from Christmas break, I guess, for 3 days. Been very impressed with their focus, their attention to detail. They've been excited about practicing and excited about getting better, which is very encouraging, especially when a game is 9 days away. But overall, real pleased with our guys and where we're at right now.
Gus, did the inclement weather and having to go indoors, did that make you make any changes to what maybe you're going to do if it had been outside?
Not really. No, we're able to really just do our normal plan. Obviously, the kicking part, punting part, is probably the only thing that was affected, but we're still able to do some of that.
Everybody eligible and going to be making the trip?
Yes.
All the injured guys, Halsey, Garrett, Whitaker, those guys?
They'll be making the trip.
How was your Christmas, Gus?
Really good. Really good. Got a chance to go home, see the parents and in-laws, and very relaxing.
You've been in the state, I guess, 4 years of your life. It's going for title number 5 in the state. What is it? Is it high school talent, high school coaching, the passion of the fan base? I mean, what kind of makes that happen?
It's probably all of the above. You've got 2 top programs. They love their football. Both schools have recruited well, and here we are again.
Gus, when you look at their game tapes, which one is the one that stands out the most and most relevant? Is it Boston College? Is it Clemson? Which?
It's very unique for the fact that they hadn't had hardly any close games, and when you're watching it just from an offensive standpoint, watching their defense, their backups are in there as much as their starters are because they're just blowing people out. So that's very unusual. They get a lot of turnovers. I think they're leading the country in interceptions and defensive touchdowns. I mean, they're very impressive with what they're doing. So to answer your question, we're watching all the games.
They haven't trailed since that Boston College game. When you talk about just the difficulty and reading into a lot of what they do, how hard is it to understand tendencies of a team that hasn't trailed very much this season and what they will do and what the play calling will be?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're always looking for information, and you're exactly right. They hadn't trailed in the second half hardly at all. So, that's the challenge. They're a very, very good team in all areas, and they beat everybody pretty soundly.
With such a long time between games, how far into the game plan are you guys right now? And do you worry about doing it too soon?
There's a fine line. Like I said, the fact that we've done this before kind of gives us a pretty good perspective. But it's all about trying to play your best. Once the game gets here and stay sharp. I think the positive thing from my standpoint is our players are really excited about practicing. They're buying into everything the coaches are asking them to do as far as getting themselves in playing shape and in the plan as far as that goes. So like I said, I feel good about where we're at. We got to finish these last 9 days preparation. But like I said, our guys are doing what we asked them.
Gus, you've had like that 1 day at a time mentality all year long, and the players have kind of bought that too. How much does that help at a time like this?
I think it helps. I think it helps a lot, and because you're always got your guard up, your antennas up to see if there's any changes, if we're acting different than we normally have to get this point. But you don't see any of that. They're going about their business, and they're preparing, and they're still working hard.
Spoke about LaMarcus Joyner being a tough matchup in the secondary, but Ronald Darby and P.J. Williams too, also guys that teams just really don't target very much because of how good they are. Just what have you seen from the other guys in that secondary as well?
Well, they're very opportunistic. They got great ball skills. A lot of different guys. I've had interceptions, but they're phenomenal back there as far as their coverage skills, their ball skills. I think they're all pretty good tacklers. And their front complements them too, so it's not just them. I mean, they've got overall good defense.
What are you looking for from the players in the next 2 days until, obviously you head that point? What specifically do you want to see?
Well, we've got to finish before we head out west. We've got, 2 more practices, and we've got to get better. We've got to have a good foundation by the time we get out there. That's our goal.
What kind, at this point, you pretty much built a foundation, so what kind of foundation you look forward to?
Yeah, just for what we do and what we're gonna, do, you know, once we get to the game.
What do you guys just make of all that chatter about the SEC winning 7 straight and having to carry that banner, so to speak, in the last game of the BCS era? And then you have Florida State players saying that they don't care about that chatter. They're Florida State, the SEC name doesn't mean a whole lot to them. They feel like they're the
I
best.
mean, each year is different, you know, and as a team, you don't really get caught up in that. I mean, you know, we're playing a big-time team. I don't care what conference they're from. You know, we got our hands full, we understand that. And, but that's for, you know, for fans and all that. We're just focused on the game no matter who we're playing.
Gus, you mentioned their defensive front, but their entire front four was former 5-star recruits. That can't be said of Alabama or LSU this year. Have you ever prepared for a defensive front that had that much talent in one group at one time?
You know, they're very talented. You know, I don't really get into the 5 stars and 4 stars and all that, but they're very talented. And, you know, but the thing about it, we faced some pretty talented, you know, fronts before.
When you look at Nick and what he's done these last couple of weeks, where do you think he is, and do you feel comfortable with being able to, you know, do some new things with him going into this game?
Well, I will tell you this, you know, he's more and more comfortable each practice, like we expected. I mean, it's been the first time we've been able to slow down and just really work on base fundamentals and things like that. You can see him more and more comfortable each day, and, you know, so that's a good thing.
Have you ever, well, first off, when did you kind of realize that the zone read could be so effective with Nick and with Trey? Just all the back,
You know, that's always part of our package right there, but I said earlier in the season, we were trying to identify who we were, you know, with a lot of questions, like I've said before. We were trying to identify our strengths and what we're good at, and we're really specifically what our quarterback's good at. You could just tell he had a knack, and the more comfortable he got with it, because his own read, you know, from a coach's standpoint, with a new quarterback, you worry about putting the ball on the ground because there's a lot goes to it. But the more confidence Coach Lashley, you know, got in Nick, and the more confidence that Nick got, it became more who we are.
Seems to be that, I'm sorry,
You never had a team run this high percentage of the time in college, I know not even really any close, the closest is Cam. Is that, I mean, is that just kind of being just adaptability? How important is that to your offense, just being able to change as you evolve?
I think you always build around your quarterback strengths, and that's Nick's strength, you know, right now. But I still believe this, and I'll say this again, Nick can flat out throw it. He just needs to get more comfortable doing it, and I believe this off period, you know, has helped.
Has that been a common thread with you? It takes maybe a few games to kind of completely figure out the guys you've got. Even in 2010, you saw the offense take on a different gear there in the 3rd or 4th week.
Yeah, I think that's anytime you got a new quarterback, you know, specifically, you learn a lot about him the first 3 or 4 games. This year was, you know, no different.
What have you learned about Nick since the SEC championship?
What have I learned about Nick since the SEC championship? You know, he wants to be good and he's coachable. And he just wants to get better. And he's got a great attitude and coach attitude. What can I do to help us?
Speaking of getting better, do you feel like your defense, specifically the pass defense, can improve during bowl practice heading in?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think all areas can improve. You know, you get a chance as a coach to step back and see where you're at with everything. And like I said, probably the first week we worried about us, just getting better at the finer things that you have to make everything work together.
Gus, there's been a lot of talk about the, I guess, sleight of hand part of the read option and all that stuff, and maybe not as much talk about the physical element of your running game. How important is that part of it, your offensive line,
Yeah.
Jay, and the physical nature?
Well, that's exactly where it starts. It starts up front with our offensive line and with Jay Frost, and the physical part of that. You know, all the other stuff is fine, but you gotta get movement up front. You gotta be very physical, and you know, so far our guys have done that.
Gus, I know you're friendly with Chip Kelly. You torn it all tomorrow night with the Eagles and the Cowboys?
Didn't even know they were playing.
Anything else? All right, Coach.
Okay, thank you.